Mhm. Good evening. This is Miss Vicky from Star Garden Parenting, and I wanted to open by apologizing that we've been under a little bit of chaos due to switching from Facebook to YouTube and then getting new equipment, the camera and the microphone. So hopefully we're getting beyond that, and we'll get all the recordings from Facebook over to YouTube so you can see them here. But I also wanted to encourage you to go to www.stargardenparenting.com, my website, or our website. It's a family website, really. This is a family enterprise. And there is quite a lot of information there on the blog. Now, when I looked at it, I could see we need to do some organization so that you can find articles more easily, but I cover a wide variety of subjects in a pretty thorough way. So I do encourage you to look at that if you're looking for alternatives for working with your children that keep them more healthy, which has been my great drive in life, health. So we'll open this evening with the Rudolf Steiner verse that I love. May my soul bloom in love for all existence, by Rudolf Steiner. And this evening's talk is called Alternative Ideas to Consider When Treating Children's Ailments. Now, this is just a compilation of what I've learned over the years as a mother and as a teacher and as someone working for 30 some years with young children. And a fair amount of it comes from Rudolf Steiner, who had such an insightful way of looking at the human being that really opens your eyes into how to observe. And then I also worked with Dr. Philip Kale, who was our family doctor, a teaching doctor, and a very wise man in helping you to learn how to help your children. So there's 3 things that I hope to cover tonight, and I'm going to try not to go too long. And the first would be things to observe, which in Waldorf education, observation is key. And I would say in parenting as well, that you have to learn how to open all of your senses to the world to get the information that comes to you from the spiritual world and the soul world. So things to observe. And the second one would be ways to address these observations. And the third one is to build your own confidence in your intuition and your insights into what you're seeing. And I think that one is really one of the hardest ones in our time, because we're surrounded with such great fear when it comes to health. Just the way the media and the propaganda works, that they pump you full of fears for everything, virtually every illness, viruses, bacteria, you name it, we're supposed to be afraid of it. And really, that is not how life was meant to be. And that is, I believe, an effort by corporations in control, or trying to control us, to use their products, basically, which, if you look at their products, and they tell you openly how terrible they are for you, the pharmaceuticals. So, not to dwell on that, let's jump right into this topic. So, one of the first things that I believe very important, and I take note of it, I always took note of it of my children every morning when they arose, and in the evenings when they went to bed. And now when I'm around them, I know they think mom's looking at them with those kind of eyes. But it's just ways to observe how healthy they are. And so it really is a measure of vitality. Vitality is a key to a healthy life. And how do you see vitality? Well, the first thing is the luster of the eyes. Do the eyes shine? Do the eyes sparkle? And children, the younger they are, the more their eyes give them away straight away, that you look at them and you think, probably a little fever coming on or something like that, or they're not well rested, their digestion isn't good, their immune system is low, various reasons for low luster of the eyes. But when you start to look for these little clues, then you start to investigate what's behind it, what might be bringing it on. So, but the first thing to learn we call Goethean observation, which reminds me to tell you, don't believe a word of what I say, just take it into your own heart and find the truth in it for you, which is what I did when I learned. And we all have truth meters in our heart. And so anyway, consider what I say openly and reject it if you must. So Goethean observation, what that means is that you take in all the sensory observations. It's your eyes, it's your ears, it's your touch, it's your smell, it's your taste, other senses beyond that, which on my website I do go into the 12 senses, and perhaps one of these days I will here as well. But nonetheless, you're taking in all this sensory information, and you're not forming judgments right away. You're just taking it in, and in a Waldorf teacher's way, you take it into sleep, or you take it into a pondering place, contemplative place. And over time, and through with that and with study and just experience, little insights just start coming to you. But even if you haven't studied it a lot, if you took it into your sleep, right before your sleep, you shared those observations that you had of your child or went over them with yourself, and you're essentially, in doing that, sharing it with your angel and your higher beings who have greater ways to and more wisdom to understand how to help things. So you take those sense impressions into your sleep, and you ask the angel of the child and your own angel to help you process it and help you determine how best to work with it. Because every person is a mystery. There is no equation. There's no formula. Here's what you must do. And we get so bewildered by it because we just, think there should be a formula, and you do this and then this and this and this. And no human being ever works that way in any sense. We follow patterns or similarities, but we're not formulaic. We're very individual beings. So you take these insights in and ask your higher beings to really give you the insight. And often when you wake up, you will have the insight, or down the line in the moment when you're working with your child, that will come to you. And the more you do it, you can do it every night when you go to sleep. It doesn't have to be in depth. It doesn't have to take a lot of time, just a short little review of some observation you had of your child, and they give themselves away. They show themselves. They reveal their deeper inner being in really little tiny ways. It's so interesting to watch them, like how they point their finger, or how they look at a bird, or so many different things. So anyway, the luster of the eyes, very first thing to look at, and then the radiance of the skin. And the skin is, as you've heard me say in other talks, is the largest organ of the body. And it is the organ that a lot of the first line of detoxification takes place. So rashes, pimples, eczema, psoriasis, anything like that, or flushed skin, or ruddy, rough, because a healthy skin has a luster just like the eyes and a radiance about it. And so the skin really does show your inner state in a great way, and which is a key to it all when I said inner state, because all of these things, and movement is another key way, and I hope to do a talk about that sometime, but we all reveal who we are by our physical being. We reveal who we are in our soul and spirit. And really, as a mother and a parent, that is what you're trying to do, is understand the soul and spirit of the child. Because we come into the world to help our child learn how to exist in physical existence. We've been here, so many years longer than they have. And they've come out of the spiritual world with a lot of wisdom. But really, our task goes beyond just preparing them for their physical life. Our task goes as far as to help their soul and spirit evolve and to come to a place of harmony and peace and love and joy. And so that's what we're really looking at, is how does the soul and the spirit sit with itself. So radiance of the skin. And then, well, obviously this doesn't apply to a child, but, come along adolescence onto early adulthood into adulthood, the level of fertility. And many of you probably know that the level of fertility is going down drastically. There's many reasons they believe that, and I won't even speak to it, but fertility is a very key thing in how healthy people are. And when Steiner gave the biodynamic lectures to the farmers, one of the reasons they asked him was that in a very short time of using toxic farm products, the nitrogen for the fertilizer and the herbicides and the pesticides, the fertility of their animals dropped significantly. And they noticed it in all these signs of vitality in the animals they noticed. So they asked him about it. So, and then there's radiant hair and how thick it is, how much vitality the hair has. That a lot of these things show you how much life and vitality the etheric life body has. And some of us are fortunate and graced to be born with a strong and vital etheric body, and some not. But we can all remediate and bring health to it. And it's a dynamic. It is not a given, like you were born like this and you have a healthy etheric body, so you're always going to be healthy. It isn't like that at all. Health is a very fine balancing act. And it is a balancing act between the soul and spirit, primarily, which displays itself physically. So, the next one is tenacious immunity. So exposed to lots of this and that and this and that. And this is one of the areas where so much fear is created in our society. You have to vaccinate against everything, when indeed your immune system needs to be exposed in little bitty doses all the time to create vitality, to create health. And it needs to be exposed to variety, both in the soil, being out in nature and exposed to lots of microorganisms, and the kinds of foods you eat, a variety, and life experiences. All of that helps to build up your immune system. And yeah, I think I did a really pretty thorough talk on immunity and on my website. So it's quite an involved subject. So then the next really key one is strong digestion. You cannot have a healthy mind or heart or physical or soul or spirit expression without healthy digestion. And that's quite a thing to watch over with young children. So you're observing their stool, their pee, how often, what colors, what smells, all of those things. And that might sound kind of icky to you, but really, that's the kind of involvement we need to have with our bodies to regulate and make sure that we're healthy. And we've only been taught by our culture that those are icky and not impure things. They're not. They're just part of being human, and something we need to really come to terms with. And I think, just a little side observation, these throwaway diapers have really impeded that ability, because they hold so much and you don't change them much. In the olden days when I made my diapers for my oldest son and then used them for my two next ones. I just happen to have them still. And when you have to use that kind of diaper, you're looking at things quite a bit. And yeah, so I won't go at all into what you can observe in it, but just, the key is to look and see what becomes your child's norm or your own norm. Um, anyway, that's another very large topic. And then clarity of mind is another really strong thing, or clarity of mood, harmony of mood is a good indicator of vitality. When you're experiencing vitality and health, you have a very not necessarily calm, but even balanced mood and way and ability to think. Although young children don't think in that way, but they express themselves in a more balanced way when they have a lot of health and vitality. Children who whine or are crabby or demanding, they're telling you that something in their health is not functioning well. And I think I went into it when I spoke about homeopathy and the minerals, how it can be indicators of uh, not enough nutrients. And then you're looking at digestion and are they absorbing and so on. So that's all I want to say about vitality. And I'm only going to be able to give you this information in a very broad stroke. There's so much behind each of it. I just want you to get an idea of how and what to be looking for. So then a thing that I think you can really look at is how much outdoor time your child is getting. Are they getting enough sun and enough physical activity? Vitality is dependent on movement and sun and fresh oxygen and all the things that nature gives us. We really have lost sight of what all that gives us based on our modern technology and having 24/7 time inside with the lights on all the time and not honoring the circadian rhythms of the seasons and so on. And even though the weather might seem not fine out, you don't prefer the 5-degree weather we're experiencing now, but maybe not to that extreme, especially with children. But to get them out, and it can be a windy day and you can find a place out of the wind and have a most beautiful time. And I really, really believe that a healthy soul and spirit needs the great outdoors in the greatest way. And, the Japanese have the forest healing, and in America we have earthing, and there's all kinds of talk about nature deprivation. And children have so many chronic illnesses and psychological conditions now that I truly believe are very connected to not having really healthy time in nature. When I have children come to the farm here, you see them breathe, you see them relax, you see them feel at ease with themselves. So you're releasing a certain amount of stress when you're on the earth and experiencing the life body of the earth, which has a specific electrical magnetic pulse. Then your pulses align with that. And that pulse is harmonious. That's what we need to align ourselves with that. If you're in an indoor environment all the time, you're aligning yourselves with the pulse of the electricity coming through the wires, the wireless through the air, the microwaves through the air, the radio waves through the air. We put so many kinds of waves in the air now that the biodynamic people have felt that there's a kind of a cloud over the earth that keeps some of the cosmic rays from coming through. They do remedies to help alleviate that so that the cosmic rays, which are rays of joy and happiness and wisdom and intelligence and kindness and compassion and so on, that those rays can come through to us. So that's part of what we get in nature, and what I highly encourage you to have your child outside every day. And I know the parks are nice and so on, but if you can get them into a place in nature where, say, there's a pond or a creek or a forest where nature really interacts, and that's very easy to do in Boulder. I remember there used to be a path called Annie B. White Trail, which was so charming. All you have to do is go, a few hundred feet up into the Rockies here, and you'll find something gorgeous. But even out east, there's the ponds and so on. I used to take my boys to the Golden Ponds in Longmont, which was really charming, just marshland and so on, and all the birds and the ducks and so on. So yeah, getting out into nature, very important. And then the other thing to observe is sleep. In order for a person to be truly healthy, we need to be having a sleep rhythm. And that rhythm varies from person to person. Some people are more morning people, some are more evening people. Some people need less sleep, some need more. And of course, they give norms, but you don't necessarily follow it. But the main thing is that it's rhythmic. And I remember this biodynamic farmer, well, actually a beekeeper, that told me you suffers more from too much sleep than too little. I thought that was interesting, and I believe probably true for me anyway. So anyway, sleep can be quite an issue for children. Once again, if you haven't had a lot of time outside with lots of activity and breathing oxygen and a healthy daily rhythm where you're out and you're in, you're active and you're quiet, you're eating and you're resting, and all of those dynamics um, and polarities, then you're not going to sleep well. If you have a lot of electromagnetic field around you, more than likely you're not going to sleep well, although certain body constitutions and different ways of looking at it, and I'll speak about that in a minute, um, it just interferes with your ability to sleep. And it can be what kinds of foods you've had late in the day or not enough of the right food and so many things. But you really have to examine whether or not your child is sleeping well. It's of the utmost importance. In fact, Dr. Michaela Glockler, whose book, A Guide to Child Health, I highly recommend, says that you need to sleep in a fashion where at least one adult in the household sleeps well every night, because you're the one who has to cope and you're the one who has to lead the household. But eventually you want the whole household sleeping. Now, I don't advocate any specific thing. I look at the wide range. People have slept in family style, one room, still do by the billions. So I'm not opposed to that. What I know is, for me, I'm a very sensitive and light sleeper. So I need to have quite a bit of quiet and not movement around me, especially at certain times of the night. And we tried all kinds of sleep arrangements. But, the one that I think I found worked best for me was at birth to have them in a little bassinet right by me, very close right there. And then when I had two young ones at once, I had the crib right close to me and a trundle bed where the little toddler slept, and I slept on one part of the trundle. So I could roll over, and because I couldn't get up in the night, I've done very odd things getting up in the night, and I'm not fully awake. So it was best for me to sleep in their room. Not, that was a couple months. It didn't last forever. Anyway, trying to figure out how to get them sleep. And some people use white noise machines. I'm not opposed to that. I like nature better. And I know my middle son, we discovered as an infant that he slept really well under aspen trees. And aspen trees are the homeopathic or flower essence remedy for anxiety and nervousness. So when those leaves are just shaking and shuddering, it helps actually to calm your nerves down. So you have to figure out, sometimes it's the airplane that flies over at that time, or the gas heat comes on. I can't sleep with gas heat, the forced air heat. It just dries my sinuses out. In Colorado, it's so dry. So, you have to figure out your child specifically and how to help them sleep. I do believe that there are quite a lot of children. Moms get into a habit of of nursing in bed and sleep. And yes, obviously that is good when the baby's brand new and you can hardly wake up and so on and so forth. But there comes a time when the child is awakened every time you move, every time they smell your breast milk, and so on. So it's kind of well documented that many children do not sleep well with their mother for that reason, and maybe you don't either. And so anyway, trying to really figure out how to help them sleep, and just to say a little bit about dreams and nightmares, that they generally are rooted in something physical, something going on with their digestion, their pancreas, their stomach, you know, arrhythmic heart, different things that can bring all that on. And yeah, but for the most part, I believe that working with children with dreams, it's helpful to tell them stories about angels and those who protect them, and help them to feel and believe that they're safe and sound. And most of us are safe and sound in our bed. The fears are manufactured around us for most of us here in Boulder, anyway. So, sleeping. And then another one to observe is breathing. And so many of us don't breathe well. We hold our breath, or we breathe very shallowly. And you can see it in children when they go, that shows you that they were holding their breath and they're finally letting it out. And one can only truly take a deep in breath when you have breathed out fully. And quite a lot of what I do with the puppet shows is to help the children breathe, and the verses and the songs. And if you watch them, I'll give you an example that the Water Maiden, where I do the ocean. That's me breathing out completely. They imitate me deeply, very deeply. They won't be saying shh, but in their bodily expression, they'll be breathing out the whole way. And I can see it every time that I do that, where they all just they settle down. The thing that we suffer from the most in our culture, which is interesting, is stress. And this does include our children. They're very reactive to the vibrations around them and the actual occurrences and so on, but it's in the air. They don't have to see it. They don't have to hear it. They can sense it. And I learned recently that in third world countries, they have far less stress, and they smile more, and the poor are more generous. And I find that so interesting that we have so much abundance here and affluence, really, definitely in the cultures that we're in. And obviously, that isn't true of every American or every person in the United States. But for the most part, we do. But we have the highest level of anxiety. And, perhaps I believe that happens because we've lost our ability, or haven't found it yet again, our deep connection to the spiritual world. Is true confidence, true security rests in the spiritual world and your relationship to your creator being. It isn't in how many clothes you have, how beautiful your car is, how big your house is. It's your relationship to your creator being. And so I really believe that, that's an important thing for all of us to work on. And for children, the most effective way really is for them to see parents and adults modeling that. And then it starts to show in your little practice with the children, the things that you do. But, and that's all about breathing and letting go of the stress. And, and I believe in our time we have this feeling that children need to be educated so that they can do really well in life. So they should be in as many classes as they can be in, and they should be learning as much as they can. When that kind of stress in the long run doesn't help them. I'm not saying children shouldn't do classes. I'm not saying They shouldn't be learning and be exposed to a variety of things. But for the most part, I don't think that should happen with them too much before 5, 6 years old. They don't have a well established nervous system to be able to deal with it. And that's part of where stress arises, is in the nervous system. And it always affects your digestion. Always. It changes the microbiome of your digestive system. And you cannot be healthy if you have stress. And it's something we just all have to work on. It's a very interesting thing. But being outside definitely does help. That's why I always start the classes outside. And I'm hopeful that people will come and really gain the benefits of it. So there's that. And then let me check the time. Got just a little bit more time. I wanted to speak about what we call the fourfoldness. And Waldorf education has these different avenues or different little pictures or paradigms, ways of looking at the child. And people say, well, if you believe that, then this can't be true. Well, that isn't how reality works. If you understand physics, you can see things from many different sides, including the inside, the outside, the upside, the downside, and the somewhere else from side, and it can all be true. So when you look at the fourfoldness, you're looking at the physical, you're looking at the life body, you're looking at the astral body or the air body, and you're looking at the ego or the fire body. And I'm not going to go into it a lot, and I hope to here in the next period of time speak about temperaments. And I do think next time I really want to speak about discipline and authority. But so I can't develop this in a very big way. But what I did want to say is that most of us have a preponderance of these four aspects of our being. The physical is connected to the bones, the solid part. The life body is connected to the water, the fluid body. And the astral is connected to the air body. So we all have solid physical, we all have water, we all have air in us, and we all have fire. Which is our ego, really. And the children don't have that fully established, but there are children and young children who are quite fiery beings. So what you see when you look at children is that they will have an area that is predominant, and it shows up in illness and expressions of imbalances. So in a very basic way, if someone is very strongly lives in their water body or their life body or their etheric body, then they very strongly live in their glands, their lymph system, which is all over your body. And I've spoken to you a fair amount about the lymph system in the brain, which modern science discovered, like Ayurveda knew forever, that it's this mohawk thing all the way down. But then you have lymph glands all over. They're constantly cleansing the body, and fluids are washing through them and forming the body and so on. But for the person who lives very strongly in their fluid body, they have a preponderance of that activity that they're somewhat aware of, it affects the way their being works. So you see those children that have lymph issues like tonsillitis, sore throats, runny noses, mucus, that sort of thing. And so that child, you learn to treat that kind of illness. And then a child who lives more strongly in their astral or air body generally will have more issues with their lungs. So breathing issues, asthma issues, bronchitis issues. And you start to see in your children that they're repetitive in the kinds of illnesses that they express. And that's what I was saying the last time. When you start to acquire herbs or homeopathy or whatever, you start to see that there's a kind of a specialization for your family. And that I was saying, don't just go far and wide and buy too much. Start to figure out what is going to be most effective with your child and your family. And you have different family members, so everyone's different. So it's a little complicated that way. But anyway, the child who has breathing issues, lung issues, could be sinus issues. That could be both fluid and air, probably more fluid. And then there's the ones who are fire, and they tend to get hot-headed, get fevers easily, react very strongly. Yeah. And then the ones who live more strongly in their physical body, their solid body, their bones, they can be more, have a tendency, because they more inhabit their bones, of being a little bit downcast. Their life forces tend to be down, not so filled with vitality. And Waldorf education tries to work in a way to give them movement and stories and songs that uplift them, that get them more uplifted, and not, rather than trying to diagnose or analyze them and work psychologically with them and work through the intellect with them. We try to do what's remedial without bringing it to their consciousness. I'll say it that way. But the other thing to know about the bones and someone who's very strongly in it, or just all children in general, what Steiner said about when children break their bones or have accidents like that, he said basically that they're having a challenge incarnating. So in other words, when you're born, your physical body is born, but these other parts of your being are still in the spiritual world. They're slowly but surely incorporated into your physical body here on earth, or into you here on earth. They're there, but they're in another dimension, is one way to put it. So a child, when they have a very healthy life and it's very rhythmic, and they're sleeping in a rhythmic fashion, and they wake up and they have a healthy life, then they have a welcoming physical environment, and their spirit and their soul wishes to come in. And it comes in at a normal and even pace. Now, sometimes things are so strong down here, and especially when you over-intellectualize with them and certain things you do with them, it draws them in too quickly, too strongly, and disrupts their vitality in that way. But for the most part, many children have incarnation issues where they just kind of stay out of themselves. And when they're out of themselves, they often will hurt themselves, either bumps, bruises, or broken bones. And a broken bone shows you that they're out of themselves. They break the bone, and the pain brings them into themselves. It's something that helps to incarnate them. Now, that's not that you want to wish for broken bones, obviously. But you can watch to see, is your child coming in? And some things to observe are, do they walk on their toes? They barely touch the earth. They flit and they flutter. Or do they walk with a heavy, firm step? Or do they tumble and trip and that sort of thing? So you're observing movement a lot that shows how their soul and spirit is working together. And then just in a general way, I wanted to say that when children have illnesses, and I'm talking about fevers or, stomach flus, or not major life-threatening illnesses, but just general childhood illnesses. And I know that's something that people don't think of very much, because most of our culture says, get rid of this illness. They shouldn't have fever. They shouldn't have measles. They shouldn't have any of that. When in fact, those are things that help clean their body, help build a strong immune system, and help get rid of toxins. But when your child is ill, very often and most often, what they're showing you is that they need your, especially the mother, but the parent's life force. They need your consciousness, they need your attention. And I'm not talking about hovering, helicoptering, never taking your eyes or your attention off them, but they need to be in your consciousness. They need soothing. When they have a fever, they need to be in your presence as much as you can. And the tendency in our time is to put them in front of the TV, or probably now give them little tablets and let them doodle on them and so on, because you've got stuff to do and so on. But better to bring them into the living room and wrap them up and let them be in your presence when you're folding the clothes than have them in the bedroom doing the TV, etc. Because the TV, etc., increases the electromagnetic field, which robs their life forces, and they need life forces to heal. And that's why they need you and your loving, devoted attention, consciousness, because that's your life force going into them. That's helping to revitalize theirs, which is a little bit low. And singing to them, rocking them, soothing them, getting time outside, fresh air, whether it's just open up the house and let the fresh air in. And people won't believe it, but my husband had a major illness, and we lived with a healer, our friend, and Patty's godmother, who was an amazing healer. And even in the coldest weather, she opened the windows every day and let the fresh air penetrate, and then closed it again, and warmed it up again. So, and not too warm, by the way. Better to keep yourself in a vest or long underwear and things, and the warmth held by your body, than having the heater on, the forced air and all of that. So, yeah, that I wanted you to know about illness, that it has a very definite purpose. It is not a wasted time, just like sleep is not wasted. It's all part of the spirit. It's all the wisdom of the body. It's the wisdom of the spirit and the soul in your body. That one, it's helpful if one begins to trust that wisdom and to learn and study as much as you can or need to, and to work with the fears that you have around fevers. For instance, fever is one of the best things in the world. And even mainstream nurse, when I have to do the med courses for the licensing, says that high fevers are not damaging like they said. That is a false teaching. Only people who are going to have seizures are seizure prone. And what my doctor taught me for my children in terms of fever was to watch how your child behaves, watch their vital signs, and really let the fever go as long as you can, as long as they're not overly uncomfortable or overly apathetic, just lifeless. And so it's watching all those vital signs. And if you do feel that either their fever has gone so high and their body isn't tolerating it well, they're either overly agitated or overly apathetic, or if it just carries on too long where you can see that it's weakening them, you can bring the fever down with cool rags, cool bath, cool lemons, and there's all kinds of remedies on your feet and your legs to bring the fevers down, rather than using Tylenol. And I don't even know what people use, aspirin and those things. Those things are damaging to your liver. They're damaging to your organs. They are not helping the healing process. And I know they help to alleviate the pain, but the pain is a teacher. And you can bring it down in a natural way that doesn't harm their organs. So that's my little 2 cents worth there. And if you don't believe me, look online and find out what, if you look deeply enough into it, what Tylenol, and I don't remember the names of all of them, what side effects they actually have. It's not a good thing for children. So that is all I have to say. It was very general. Hopefully can be helpful to you, because I think healing your own children really takes you developing something in yourself, and mainly developing your relationship to your soul and spirit, and increasing your confidence and your awareness of your intuition and inspiration, which we all have. Either we're aware of it or it's a sleeping force that we can awaken. And working with your health is one way to awaken it. And the only way we're ever really truly going to be healthy is to learn to intuit, to be in touch with our own bodies, and help our children learn how to be in touch with our bodies. We are not going to get health from a doctor or a healthcare system or insurance or the government or any of that. It's going to be through us and our relationship to our soul and our spirit, through our higher creative being. For some people, that's God. So I'll close with May My Soul Bloom in Love for All Existence by Rudolf Steiner. Thank you. Good night, and I love you all. Bye-bye.